Hey guys, this is What If Deku Was the Lizard Part 1 reboot. Now, I'm rebooting a lot of my classic stories, mainly because I feel like I could do better now on those stories and make them a lot more modernized and a lot more better in terms of my new, way I'm doing my What Ifs now. And I'm thinking about rebooting my What If Benson Was in Young Justice series, but I'm probably just going to continue it and finish it off and just, do a final finale for that show or that series later on. But I'm going to be diving right more into my Deku What Ifs a lot more, since those are the main What Ifs a lot more people enjoy, and I actually enjoy making more. So Young Justice and Deku What Ifs are probably what you're going to see from me way more now. And a lot more action figure content is coming, because mainly I feel like I've been kind of sleeping on my action figure content, especially my stop motions. And my army and stop motion is done. I just haven't had the time to do voice acting for it. So it's one thing I really just don't like. But let's just dive right into this reboot. And this story was over a year ago. And was a year ago, actually. It's precisely a year ago when everybody is saying, where is it? Hey, you should continue it, man. Like, bro, this is a good story. And I'm going to be continuing it. And yeah, let's just dive right into this reboot. Some of the stories are going to be it's just changed a little bit, but not enough to really change it too much. Now let's dive right into the story. Now let's start our story off with Deku's origin and how he would become to be the lizard. Now, Deku's story would start off with his origin, as Deku would be born a lizard in the wild. As Deku would be born a lizard, a very rare species of lizard, but I won't be saying what exactly. As Deku, over the years, would have started to experience differentiations in his, mindset, as he would see clearer than all of his other siblings, as he would think faster and actually put together, solve problems, and think human. As over the years, Deku would start to become bigger and bigger, to a point where he would become as big as a Komodo dragon, and even as big as a small child by the time he was about 5 to 6 years old in human years. As Deku is incredibly powerful now, and more or less simulating or symbolizes or looks somewhat like a human child, but with some sort of mutation quirk. As Deku would have green hair, lizard-like eyes, and a human-like structure a human-like face. As Deku would look like a 10-year-old version, or not a 10-year-old, but like a small, young version of, Deku in canon. As this Deku would have lizard-like skin, a tail, claws, fangs, and, the lizard-like eyes, and a cut tongue, or a lizard tongue. As Deku would be in the forest, running around, as eventually some scientists would have come across him, as they would have seen him, as they would have been fascinated by him, thinking he was a child, as he would have taken him in and put him through, some care and given him to, the system. Over the years, Deku being pushed to different countries, different places, and eventually finding his way to Japan, as he would be pretty much placed through child services in Japan. As Deku, over the years, with his quirk manifesting, making him better. As Deku's quirk, him being an animal with a quirk, as his quirk would give him high intelligence, superhuman strength, durability, endurance, and overall regeneration abilities as well, on top of him already being a lizard, him having certain senses that other humans don't. As Deku, let me go over a little rundown of his powers. Physical powers, Deku has a lot of, strength boosting quirks. His quirk is mainly called human, or humanoid, as it makes him more humanoid than lizard. But plus his lizard ability and DNA gives him that edge, and mixing with his human DNA, giving him some sort of superhuman abilities, as he would have had the base super soldier type powers and strength and agility and durability, as Deku would be as durable, as fast, and as strong as the lizard in the comics. As he would also have regeneration capabilities similar to the lizard, but decapitation would kill Deku, or a clean, huge shot to the chest, like someone ripped out his heart, that would kill him either way. or it would badly hurt him. Deku never really tested out the whole pulling out his heart thing, but we would have to say Deku can regenerate certain organs, but limbs take a few couple hours, and organs take a few hours as well, but limbs like a tail and arm and leg take a couple days, to be honest, like 20, 30 something hours. Now, Deku's other abilities, mental, Deku would have had a super boost in intelligence, being way stronger than the girl, I think, to the provisional license exam, being way smarter than that quirk user's intelligence quirk, and also way smarter than the principal of UA, and being probably the most smartest person in the UA or My Hero Academia universe in this story, as his intelligence would be going over to Ray Richards, Tony Stark, even Moon Girl, and even, well, Kurt Connor's and Spider-Man's intelligence going past all those. But at this point, Deku would be as smart as Kurt Connor's, as, well, him being only 10 to 11 at this point in the story now, since he would be in foster care for a couple years, since he would have been found at about 5 years old, or 6 years old. So Deku would be basically training himself, actually, as Deku would be going into, human society, as he would look into their books over the years as he was in foster care, as he would eventually come across a book about heroes, as he would read about heroes, go on the internet, go on the internet to figure out that he could become a hero, as Deku would somewhat not really understand the whole human emotion or human, I guess, thought process between helping people, as Deku only knew about survival of the fittest, as he had to survive on his own for years and find his own food. He never really had to help anybody, as Deku never had any type of real, I guess, emotional connection with anybody ever in his whole life. Even as a lizard, before he started to mutate with his quirk, he never really found a purpose in actually communicating with humans, actually knowing what they actually feel and why they do these things, like save people. But Deku mainly puts it all down to money, fame, fortune, or that sense of, well, relief that you save somebody, you help their lives thrive, that you stop somebody from dying. But Deku never really thought, why do they like this feeling? As Deku goes over and tries to figure out why humans feel this, as why humans do all these. So eventually, we see how Deku one day is adopted by Inko, as Inko in this story is actually a scientist and works for Oscorp. Now, Oscorp would have a secret type of vendetta, and would be one of the main points of how Deku would come to be. Now, we're not going to get into that right now, but Oscorp is a, company that's going to play a major point in Deku's story and how he'll become a better hero or a better character later on down the line. Now, Deku, for his story to begin, Deku was adopted, for the story to really begin in the My Hero timeline, Deku was adopted by Inko at about 10 to 11 years old. As Deku was raised by Inko for the next couple of years, as Inko teaches him human, emotion, personality, thrive, and just feelings all together. As Deku starts to exhibit these feelings and becomes more human than he actually thinks he can become, as Deku attains the same personality he had in the canon story of My Hero Academia, but a little bit altered, being a lot more cold, kind of a mixture of Todoroki and Deku's story, kind of a mixture between Todoroki and Deku's type of, I guess, emotions or personality, as Deku would be cold but also yet comforting and pretty much charismatic, kind of like, I guess, a smart version of Spider-Man, kind of superior Spider-Man, but still having quippy jokes and being funny, but also still being kind of cold and, well, cold-hearted, you could say. Now, for this story to continue, let's go over Deku's extra abilities. Now, I did say Deku has the basic abilities of like the super soldier, him being incredibly fast, strong, durable, and athletic, and having a reaction time pretty on par, being able to dodge even bullets if he really wants to. But since he can regenerate, he doesn't really have to dodge bullets unless they actually go for his head, since it takes a pretty long time for Deku to actually regenerate his brain. Now, Deku, for his powers, when he manifests, when Deku gets older, he'll become more lizard and more monster-like. But for now, for his 10-year-old, 11-year-old body, he looks kind of like what's in the picture in the child, lizard child, in the thumbnail. He kind of looks like that at this time. Now, Deku, over the years, he'll become a lot more powerful and stronger, but for now, he's pretty base level of speed and strength. As Deku's extra abilities, other than having increased intelligence, being able to mutate when he gets older, and also having these increased strength and speed boost every time he gets older, we see that Deku has a sort of venom or camouflage ability, as Deku can camouflage for about 5 minutes a day, as he can't go max or lower than that. He has to use it for about 5 minutes, or else his body will, I guess, collapse on itself. It's more or less complicated on the fact that Deku has to use his camouflage every day for it to work properly. Now, it's basically like having a muscle, but you never use it for years on end. And if he doesn't use it for one day, it feels like it hasn't been used or hasn't been activated for years. So it becomes numb, and even sometimes he could just simply not use it for a couple days and it'll just go away forever, and he can never use it again, never attain that quirk again, or that ability again. Also, the venom. Deku's venom is very much potent and also very deadly, to a point where it's even, god-killing level deadly. As Deku's poison comes from his claws or either his fangs, as he can choose to release it or keep it in. As Deku's venom comes from his bone marrow, as it's kind of complicated, but his bones secrete this type of venom that goes throughout his bloodstream, as his blood is normal, but Deku's saliva or venom is coursing through every part of his bones, or his main core of his bones. So his claws are connected to this bone marrow. So if he calls somebody and he doesn't, focus to keep it in, he can literally just, poison them, and also biting it as well. Kind of works like snake venom, as it comes out of the tips of his fangs and bottom of his fangs. As if he bites somebody, he basically injects this poison in them, and it takes about 10 minutes for them to really just straight up die. Just die. And it's an excruciating, painful process on top of that, because the poison, first off, it boils your blood. After it boils your blood, it cuts off your blood oxygen. It cuts off your oxygen, or straight up just squeezes your lungs. So it feels like your blood is fire ants, as you are burning everywhere on your body. And after that, the pain will go away after that. And then your heart will start to slow down to a point where it will be able to just straight up stop. And before that, your lungs would stop and clog up. So you would start to lose oxygen, and you would start to just not breathe. Then your heart would stop. And then your brain would fry, as basically the poison would eventually come up to the top of your head, as it would eat through your brain tissue, as it would literally leave you just a corpse with nothing in your head. Just a sack of nothingness that used to be your brain. So basically, the poison is incredibly dangerous, and Deku has to be very vigilant when training and trying not to bite anybody. So that's the thing. Now, Deku can kiss somebody or hug somebody. It is not super dangerous, but if someone ever ripped his spine apart, or basically broke his bones, and his bones were exposed, the venom would just straight up just squirt out. But it's super dangerous, but it's not skin to skin contact, so it has to get into your bloodstream somehow, or you have to ingest it. That's how it kills you. But skin to skin contact isn't going to hurt you. So yeah, that's the only thing. So yeah, so Deku doesn't have to be that careful, but he has to be careful not to cut anybody with his poison. Now, I think I went over all of Deku's abilities. So Deku has super senses. And I think that's all. Regeneration, superhuman abilities, and strength, and stuff like that. Camouflage. Camouflage is kind of like Miles Morales' camouflage that it can blend in, or Gecko's camouflage. So it's kind of like that. So I think I went over all of his abilities. So let's just dive right into year time gap. Because Deku's about 15 now, as Deku is going to a school and is basically in the same class as Bakugo. As the day starts off the same as in canon, as Bakugo comes across the front of the class after the class, is talking about being heroes and stuff. As Bakugo says, I'm going to be the #1 hero in this class and in the world. I'm the best quirk user here. I'm the best hero here, the best person with the best quirk. As everybody looks at Deku and says, what about Deku? As Deku is pretty strong, but the Bakugo has a vendetta against him, saying he's a monster. Look at his face. Look at him. He's a lizard freak. As Deku, over the years, has become even more mutated, as Deku kind of looks like the picture on the right of the thumbnail. The right of the thumbnail, basically, he looks kind of like that. Now, you know what? Basically, I'll put a picture up right here, just to make sure you know. That's how Deku looks like right now. His face, him growing a snout now, his teeth being way more longer and more, pointier. His tail becoming even more monstrous and girthy and tall and long, and him being about 6-something right now. And Deku being way more stronger, faster, and way more durable than he was when he was younger. Now, basically, you see that Deku is very much the smartest kid in their class, way smarter than Bakugo. But Bakugo thinks he's better than Deku, as Deku and Bakugo have a couple rivalry, as Deku has never really fought back with Bakugo, as he's never really tried to go all anger, as Deku has never really experienced true anger before, as when Deku does get angry, it's hell to pay. So we'll just dabble into when Deku gets angry later on in the story. So Deku is always kind of neutral, kind of like Todoroki. As Deku, before, he leaves class, he's stopped by Bakugo, as Bakugo burns up his book and tells him to sit down, as he pushes Deku down, as Deku is towering over him when he's on his, feet, as Deku is incredibly tall, about a couple inches taller than Sugar Rush, and Sugar Rush is the tallest kid in UA, in class 1A. No, Duplo Arms is, I think, the tallest kid in UA. Deku is about 6'8", 10, probably 7-something, but Deku is pretty tall. 6'8" is the canon height for Lizard in the comics, so Deku's about 6'8". So Deku is more or less just letting Bakugo get off his anger, as Bakugo throws an explosion at Deku's face, burning his face, as Deku, hisses at him and pushes Bakugo against the wall and tells him to leave him alone. As Deku walks off, kind of letting go of his rage, as we'll get more into why Deku is trying to control his rage later on in the story. Now, we will see that Deku walks home as he's picked up in a limousine, as Deku's, mother is actually pretty rich, since she is a head scientist at Oscorp, as Oscorp is one of the biggest companies in Japan that helps with hero, pretty much support items, and pretty much technology and advancing science and biogenetics as well. And also biotics as well on top of all that, as it's a very successful company in Japan and all around the world, matter of fact. As Deku is dropped off at Oscorp, as he's meet up with his mom, as his mom says, "There's my good boy," as he kisses Deku and says, "Let's go upstairs, son." As he's shown pretty much a presentation that his mom's working on to pretty much start off a plan for genetic growth, basically being able to grow people's limbs back together without the use of somebody's quirk, being able for somebody to go to the hospital and being treated immediately with a little bit of a prick of a needle, making their whole lives different. Amputees would have a huge, it would be a huge market for amputees, as people with missing arms, legs, or people that just never really had legs or arms by a genetic defect would be helped dramatically, As Deku would say, if somebody never had arms, how would you be regenerating their bodies? As he would say, their bodies would be regenerating more cells since this blood, your blood. I've been taking your blood, Deku, and I've been synthesizing it over the years, making a specific canister. I haven't tested it out on human subjects yet, but I am setting up the right way to do it. I'm not just doing it, chaotically and just throwing it in people, like poor people and stuff like that. Not like how other companies did that. So we're gonna be doing it the right way, Deku. Azuku. Deku is named Azuku just for, I guess, narrating purposes. Deku was named Azuku by Inko since Deku didn't have a name when he was adopted, and Deku never had any parents or anything in the books. So Inko adopted him, and they told him Deku never had a name, and Deku never even gave himself a name, and they only called him by a number. So basically, Deku is, his name is still from, a child, Inko. Now, Inko basically tells Deku that this serum can help people all around the world. Your blood could be the cure to cancer. Your genes, your cells regenerate so fast to a point where cancer would just be stopped in its tracks. People wouldn't even defeat it. It would just not work anymore. Cancer would just stop, and they would be cured somewhat. As Deku says, that's amazing, but we don't know the side effects. As Inko says, we'll figure out the side effects together, son. But for now, I'm going to call you a cab back home. I have to finish up some work here. I won't be back until later at night. You'll probably be asleep by that time. I'm very sorry, son, but I have to work on this. As Deku understands, as he hugs his mom goodbye and says, see you later, mom. As Inko also tells Deku, are you still wanting to be a hero? As Deku says, yeah, why not? As Deku walks off, as he kisses his mom goodbye and goes downstairs. As his cab calls him, as Deku is driven past a whole commotion, as Bakugo is pretty much stuck by the sludge villain. As the sludge villain is still taken down by All Might, as All Might defeats the sludge villain, as somewhat for plot reasons, the sludge villain somewhat escapes without the help of Deku, as basically he's still taken down by All Might as the rain starts coming down. All Might uses his, punch and basically changes the weather. As after that, we see that Deku driven back home, as Deku's pretty rich family, as Deku goes downstairs to an indoor gym as he starts to train his ass off. As Deku has been training his body, as Deku's fighting technique is kind of a mixture of pretty much, a mixture of kind of Tanjiro and Jiro. I don't remember his name. The tail quirk guy from Class 1A, his quirk, his combat skill, using Deku's tail as one of his extra limbs to fight, using it as, extra appendage, as it is extra appendage, as Deku also uses a lot more ferocity and angry, more werewolf kind of like attacks, kind of like a monster attacks, with his base type of fighting skill, plus him using Jiu-Jitsu, karate, and other things like that to make a more civilized type of fighting and more precise type of fighting. When Deku's focused, he's a powerhouse, since all that strength he has is focused in smart and pretty much precise ways and punches. But when Deku's angry, he's a ferocious monster beast. He's kind of like Lizard from the comics, as he's a ferocious beast that doesn't care about anything but killing. As that's basically what Deku gets when he's angry. As Deku, for big purposes, he becomes kind of like a Hulk / Wolverine. When Deku gets angry, pissed off, whoever is in his way, they are going to die. I'm sorry, it's like simple. They are going to die, or at least be amputees after Deku's done with him. Deku's done with he or she or them. So yeah. So Deku, for the rest of the story, we see that Deku is training for the 10-month arc training, as Deku is training, speed, agility, reflexes, and basically going all out for everything. Now we get switched to nearly the end of the 10-month arc train, as Deku goes to Deku Beach, pretty much doing his cardio, as he eventually comes across some training. He sees All Might with some sort of blonde-haired kid that can phase through objects. As he's training this kid, as Deku is interested and looks closer and closer, as Deku's eyesight is incredibly enhanced, as Deku can basically see kind of like binoculars. As Deku watches and watches very more closely, as eventually he snaps out of it, as Mirio recognizes, or this blonde-haired kid, sees him, as Deku runs off and camouflages a couple minutes later, as Mirio and All Might can't find him, as they try to see what's going on, who was spying on them, as Deku was camouflaged somewhere very close to them. As Deku walks back home after his cardio or after his jog, as Deku gets ready for the next day, as he goes for the entrance exams, as Deku is in the same type of jumpsuit he was in, just sized up, because Deku is a pretty big, buff, monstrous guy. As Deku walks in, as people are like kind of surprised at how big Deku is and how tall and girthy and how muscular but also yet skinny and athletic this dude is, and how, I guess, scary this guy is, how intimidating he looks. As Deku was walking by, as he walks past Ochaku, as Deku was walking, as his tail slaps a green-haired girl on the floor. As the green-haired girl gets up, as Deku says, "I'm so sorry," as she looks at Deku and they look at each other, and it's kind of like a love at first sight. As Deku helps her up and saying, "I'm so sorry," as he says, "My name is Deku. What's yours?" As she says, "My name's Froppy," as she looks at Deku and just stares at him dead in his eyes, like she's like hypnotized. As he says, "Are you there?" As she snaps out of it and says, "Oh, sorry, that must have been creepy for you." As he would have said, "No, it was okay." As Deku would have talked to her and kind of would have flirted with her a little bit. Deku being not as nerdish, but yet again, not being so confident to a point where he doesn't go out and just ask girls out. As Froppy talks to him, as they have a little interaction, as they walk past each other, giving each other, a thumbs up to pass, as Deku walks off. As Deku later on, they give the written exam. Deku passes out with flying colors and passes pretty much all the exams when it comes to the main exam, with the 0-pointer, 1-pointer, and all its other things. As they are given a little rundown of everything, as Deku's quiet the whole time, as Deku sees Froppy from afar and tries to walk over there to try to say hi, as he's stopped by Ida, as Ida says you can't bother her, as Deku says, "Oh, sorry," as he tries not to get angry, because this weird, nerdy kid just right up in front of him and just slapped him on his chest saying, "Don't bother her," and pretty much confused him. As it starts, as President Mike says, in a real fight, or a real hero, it's no countdowns, as everybody's told to go. As Deku pretty much bolts over the door and literally climbs the whole thing, like literally just fences it, like floors it over the whole door, just climbs up the door, scales the door upwards. As Deku is the first one in the ring, or first one in the city, as he starts to rip apart these robots like nothing. As Deku's ripping them apart and clawing through them, as Deku's claws are incredibly strong, as they are basically 10 times to 15 times stronger than human bones, steel, or anything like titanium. And it takes a hefty amount of force, like a Detroit Smash, to bend or even break Deku's bones. So Deku's bones are incredibly durable, alongside his other parts of his abilities. Plus his scales make him even more durable, even more, hard to scrape or scratch, or, pretty much stab. As Deku was running across the city, ripping through these robots with no hesitation, eventually coming across the 0-pointer. As Deku was about to run off, as he hears a girl screaming, it being Ochaku. As Deku runs over there, helping the girl and pretty much easily pushing the rebel off of her, grabbing her and sprinting off, as she is more or less kind of disgusted by Deku, even though she knows Deku's helping him, as she doesn't really see Deku's reptilian side as appealing to the eyes, as she pretty much yearns him to let go of her when they get to the her recovery girl, as she says, "Thank you, but can you just not look right in my face? You're kind of ugly." As Deku was kind of hurt by this, like genuinely hurt. As he walks off, being kind of distraught as the whole thing is over. Deku's walking back home as he bumps into Froppy again. As Froppy says, "Oh, hey there, handsome," as she would have been talking to him and flirting with him. As Deku would be kind of, happy now, as they are talking, as eventually they exchange numbers. As they walk past each other, as they say, have a good night, as it's about nighttime as they walk back home. As Deku is, in his room, pretty much on the phone, as he gets pretty much a note the next day when he wakes up in the morning from his mom, as his mom opens the mail and gives him the note as Deku got into UA, as his mom's pretty excited for him. As Deku says, "This is awesome." As Deku is, super happy as he hugs his mom, as his mom is, hugging him back. As Deku's mom is super loving for him. And Inko is in her prime, so she is like skinny Inko. So yeah. So Deku basically goes see UA the next day as he walks to the class when they seeing Froppy. As him and Froppy look at each other and they talk, they flirt a little bit. As basically we see that Deku sees Ochaku walk in the room. As Ochaku walk past Deku, as Deku is kind of like pissed off at Ochaku. And Ochaku is going to have Ochaku and Deku are going to have kind of a, I guess, kind of a fucked up relationship. Sorry for my language, but you could say that now on YouTube because somehow YouTube is allowing cuss words now. Yeah, YouTube doesn't monetize you for cuss words anymore now. Surprisingly, to my knowledge now, it's a new change. It's a new change now. I guess they just figured out they have YouTube Kids, so if parents don't want their kids watching cuss words, watching people cuss, they should tell them to go to YouTube Kids. So, but yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy. I'm not ending off the video, but basically we see that Deku and Ochaku are gonna have a pretty messed up relationship, as Ochaku is going to be kind of a mean girl to Deku. Mean girl to Deku. Not even slash, just a mean girl to Deku. As Deku's also going to be very mean to her in return, since he doesn't really care for her anymore, since that one intercation when she said he looked ugly really messed with Deku's personality and even made him go somewhat as angry. Now we see that Deku is pretty much in the class as eventually Azal wakes up from his nap in his sleeping bag, as he tells the class that it took you 5 minutes to get quiet. As he tells everybody to go downstairs and get into their gym uniforms, as they're going to do quirk assessments and see if you actually are see if you actually should be in UA. As Deku basically walks in to the gym uniform, walks in the gym outfit and gets dressed, as everybody's like shocked, especially pretty much about Kirishima saying you're so manly, basically looking at Deku as he's super big. Deku is bulky as freak underneath his outfit, as Deku basically is real. I want to stress this enough. Deku is a big dude, buff dude, plus his already ferocity. Like he looks very, like if you see Deku in the dark, like him staring you down in the dark, he would piss your pants. I mean, Deku is huge. You would piss your pants. You would literally pray to God if you saw Deku. If you saw anybody like the lizard in a dark corner staring your ass down, you would piss your pants. I guarantee you that. But basically, we see that Deku walks in the class and walks, outside, as everybody is told to throw the ball. As Deku throws the ball, as he basically gets a really good score. Jump test, he aces it with flying colors. Race, he gets a phenomenal score. And for grip test strength, a pretty good score. So Deku overall gets about second place to first place. So second place. Just off a point for first place. So yeah. Now Deku gets a pretty good score. As everybody, pretty much happy. As Ochaku does kind of say that Deku is pretty strong, but her still thinking he's ugly in terms of, his mutation. Now I do know, pretty much, well, Froppy kind of fights with Deku a lot more, as Froppy and Deku are going to be kind of like, I guess, a endgame type ship. But, I don't know, I might change it up a little bit, like for my what if Deku had the Omnitrix. I am changing up the whole shipping thing a lot. I'm changing up the shipping a lot in this story. But yeah, in that story. But basically, we see that the pretty much day ends off there as Deku is picked up by a car as he pretty much was dropped by his house as he walks in his house as he basically gets a call from Froppy, as Froppy calls him up and basically, talks to him as they talk and they flirt a little bit as basically they are kind of getting, more of a feel for each other. As Froppy has a really big crush on Deku. And Deku the same way for Froppy. As Deku goes to sleep that night happy as we end off the story there. Now, basically guys, part 2 will be a little bit more, I guess, action-packed, because this story was mainly just an origin story telling you how everything was going down and how Deku came to be. Part 2 will be a lot more action-packed, and it will be a blast to listen to. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Please like and subscribe, and I really hope you guys enjoy this reboot, and I'm bringing back the series because I actually really like this story. So hope you guys have a good night. Have a blessed night. Deuces.